want from any administration, but especially, as we've heard very loudly from some of them, on the eve of what looks like military strikes. Whether or not there needs to be an authorizing resolution, that is debatable. But no matter what, no matter where these members of Congress sit on their view of Syria and in their party, almost all of them say that it is critical for the administration to consult with Congress. And that's why you heard both the president and Kerry, both former senators, by the way, say that they get it, they understand it, and that's why they're at least trying to, my words, not theirs, check that box.
Check the box. Dana Bash, thank you. I want to talk a little bit more about the political implications, of course, as it pertains to Syria here at home in the United States. I'm going to bring in CNN political commentator Maria Cardona, Democratic strategist, and Republican strategist Liz Mayer. So ladies, let me just begin with this. As we hear from the president, as we hear from U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, and the proof and the numbers, the deaths of that chemical weapons attack, more than 1,400 killed, of that, more than 400 children. Here's my question to both of you, and Liz, I'll start with you. What about inaction? What if, after all these days of buildup, the president, the administration decides to hang tight and do nothing? Liz, how would that be responded to?
It's certainly there are going to be some people who are going to knock him for inaction and, frankly, for having built this up into such a big deal where action was expected. And then, there will be people who will say that he looks very weak and that he sort of fluffed it at the end of it. My concern would be far less that and far more to do with what that is saying in terms of his message to the international community and what impact that might have on diplomacy and relations going forward.
What would that message be, do you think?
Well, I think ultimately, one of the things that's very important when you're dealing with a diplomatic situation like this and the prospect of ending up going to war or doing surgical strikes or whatever it may be, people need to be very clear in what you are saying that you will do and under what conditions, and setting expectations and adhering to them. Otherwise, you end up with everything being a jumble. There is no predictability, and that's going to make it very hard to actually go in and get people to do what you actually want them to do, because their assumption is going to be that there may be a lot of crying wolf going on. I think that is probably the bigger concern here.
Sure, and I think the issue would be, it's not just sending a message. If the United States were not to do anything, it would send messages to other countries, i.e. Iran, bark and no bite. But still, Maria, the question stands, and I hear people coming on, and they say you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Yeah. But what if the president does nothing?
I think that would be one of the worst options of what is right now, Brooke, a list of just bad options. And, again, he said he has made no decision, but I can't imagine at this point with, like you said, all of the buildup, with all of the intelligence information that Secretary Kerry has said publicly, with everything that they are looking to do to frankly talk about why this is necessary, I can't imagine that at the end of the day, the administration is going to do nothing. From a personal standpoint, I don't think that would be politically savvy. I don't think it's acceptable from an international standpoint. But there's no question that these are all bad options. The majority of the American people don't want us to take any option, don't want us to take any action there. But from a credibility standpoint, and in fact, everybody has talked about on this network how this is a flagrant act against the international community, the utmost going against international law. Something has got to be done.
Right, the use of chemical weapons, atrocious and in violation. That said, you look at the pictures. We were watching the British Parliament yesterday, the fiery debate, ultimately voting down the idea of any kind of military campaign when it comes to Syria. And as we watch this, and you see that everyone's able still to come together for a day, and here in the U.S. there are these calls. I talked to Barbara Lee yesterday, Congresswoman out of California, calling one of these, signing and writing letters that the Congress should debate this before the president, for lack of a better word, decides to push the button on this limited strike. Liz, do you think that Congress should handle this, or is this already the most announced military attack in history and the U.S. should just go?
The issue isn't whether it's announced or not. The issue is legalities and whether we're actually complying with constitutional law and public law that's on the books. And in my personal opinion, clearly if you're talking about a surgical strike, that does play differently in people's minds when they're looking at legalities than if you're talking about, launching the Iraq War or something like that. But at the end of the day, I think most people's conception, certainly based on what John Kerry said earlier, I think his conception is that we are doing something that constitutes an act of war. And in view of that, in my personal view, I do think for both political and legal reasons, it is important to get Congress to vote on this. Ultimately, I'm sure that there are many members of Congress that do not want to break up their vacations. I'm sure that there are political considerations that play into this on both sides. You know, the Obama administration is probably concerned that if they bring Congress back and ask them to vote on this, they may not get a resounding vote of support that they really want. Personally, I think they probably would get it through and it would be fine. You know, you probably also have certain Republicans and certain people in leadership who don't necessarily want to be in a position where their members are put on the record about this, depending on how it ultimately goes. That may be a political liability for them. But, you know, the Constitution and public law are not put together with politicians' self-interest in mind, and I think it's important that they take a vote on this, not merely get consulted.
Maria?
Brooke, I think the important thing here, the important thing here is, and what the law says is that the president has got to consult closely with Congress. That's why you heard him and you heard Secretary Kerry underscore the fact that they are doing just that, and they're going to continue to do just that. And frankly,
but that is not what the Constitution says.
What the War Powers Act says that within 60 days, Congress has got to vote on this. If this happens, this will last nowhere near 60 days. It will be done. And from a strategic standpoint, Brooke, to your point about this being the most announced military strike ever, in my view, if the president is going to go, he should do it now. And then after that, if we assume that there is going to be additional action taken, let's remember, there are no boots on the ground. This is not going to be a long process of engagement the way it was in Iraq. If that changes, then he does have to come back, consult, and have a vote with Congress.
Maria Cardona and Liz Mayer, thank you both.
Thanks, Brooke.
Thank you.
Coming up next, we will take you inside the mind of this leader in Syria, including his mood swings and his temperament and how he might react to an American strike. Hear from someone who has met with Bashar al-Assad multiple times.
We don't just certify our pre-owned vehicles. We inspect, analyze, and recondition each one until it's nothing short of a genuine, certified, pre-owned Mercedes-Benz for the next new owner. Hurry into your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer for 1.99% financing during our certified pre-owned sales event through September 3rd.
Mom? Hey, we're in here.
Oh, hi, sweetie.
What happened?